Maps! Over the last few months, since the announcement was made by Valve that they were looking for new TF2 maps to feature this summer, the mapping community absolutely stepped up their game in a massive way. A ridiculous amount of maps were polished off in that time span, and I would be willing to bet there has never been a time in TF2 mapping history that so many maps have hit a fully polished release state. So, in this video, I want to step away from my own projects for a minute and show off some of the cool stuff that has been created by the community recently. A massive note for this video is that I'm only going to be talking about maps that I have personally played and have been released to the workshop in the last few months. With the insane amount of maps that have come out, let alone the ton of cool old maps that have been overlooked over the years, there's no way for me to have played them all or have enough time to cover everything. These are just the maps that I thought were cool and wanted to showcase. Please do not take any omissions from this list as a negative towards that map. We're all being positive here, a rising tide lifts all ships. But if you missed it and want to see my offerings for the year, check out my previous video. All maps covered will be linked in the description below, and if you'd like to see them added, go take the time to vote for them. I swear this is super important. That said, there's a lot to cover, so let's just jump right into it. Rotunda. This map is a large, round, King of the Hill map set in an abandoned steam engine workshop. It has an extremely interesting circular design that slightly invokes Nucleus, but let me tell you that this map is pushing the limits of what Hammer is capable of. Using a ton of instances and a lot of math that I'm personally not smart enough for, the map features a ton of interesting geometry at angles I don't even want to think about having to deal with. The middle capture takes place in this little shack which provides cover from the general openness of the rest of the main combat area of the middle portion of the map. Unlike Nucleus, Rotunda has these courtyards before the central area that allows you to rotate to different places on the mid area. It also features a rideable train which helps getting back to the middle with a little bit of randomization in train heights that keeps it interesting. The team should be very proud of this monster of a map that they put together. Plus, the oil makes splorch noises. Hehe, splorch. Empire. Empire is another King of the Hill map, this time set in a city high-rise. The spawns are these unique helicopters that you would think would be too easy to spawn camp, but the areas just outside of them are tough enough to hold that even with a massive push, you aren't going to be there for long. The middle area features this raised up platform and a lot of interesting gameplay spaces around it to fight on. I've had a ton of fun fights around this middle area, and I think the map does a great job at focusing the action onto the point itself, leading to a natural back and forth. The raised areas right next to the point even provide a solid but balanced engineer hold position, and there's a ton of fun height variation to play with on as a jumping class. There's also this little under the point route here that helps you flank even the toughest holds without being too overpowered. Plus there's a bunch of death pits around it that do that funny long fall scream everybody likes.
Holy crap, this goes on forever.
Extinction. This one you've likely already seen if you follow this channel, but this one is a long-form payload map with a unique but familiar theme. Combining the classic desert TF2 aesthetic with a ton of new dinosaur bone assets was an absolute no-brainer, and I'm amazed no one has done this before in a map. Visually, this one is beautiful, with a lot of old-school TF2 charm joining with modern techniques and asset usage. The geysers on the map provide a bunch of fun, sometimes random gameplay mobility for all classes to leverage that introduces a lot of height changes to classes that would otherwise be limited in mobility while still maintaining balances for the usual jumping classes. I've tested this map a ton, and I can say it's probably one of the most polished maps gameplay-wise recently on the workshop. There's been a ton of attention to detail, and every class has something to do in every major space of the map without being too overpowered. The last area fittingly switches gears from geysers to volcanoes, providing just the right amount of map hazards with fun gameplay. I highly recommend checking this one out. Relic. This map is a very beautiful King of the Hill map set on a Greek island filled with ancient ruins and artifacts. The map has an interesting layout that breaks away from the usual formulas, but still has a classic, easy-to-understand feel. The point is up on this bridge here with plenty of routes to get around it, creating a fun deathmatchy sort of arena with a ton of angles and height variation to fight on. Visually, there's a fun museum aesthetic to the map that really sets the mood for the theme, and the surrounding bits of industrial and city detailing helps make the map feel realistic, as if there's been a whole industry popping up around these relics. I also appreciate the asymmetry to the detailing in an otherwise symmetrical game mode that always helps make a map a little bit more interesting. My only issue visually is I'm personally not a big fan of the meta references using the classes as statues and onto the pottery. I feel like that makes it a little bit too self-referential and meta, but that's more of a personal preference. Overall, it's a great map that I enjoyed playing on, and I think the visual aesthetic is refreshing for the game. Eruption. Eruption is another long-form payload map set on a volcanic jungle island. Each area of this map has a unique feel to it, both gameplay and visually, which I think keeps the map feeling fresh as you progress through it. It also keeps the volcano as a central element as you progress to give it a good sense of continuity as you enter the final zone. I always appreciate a map that goes all in on the spy tech look, and the entire last of this area does it very well. It really captures that James Bond villain-esque secret volcano layer sort of feel, which is a perfect fit for TF2. Gameplay-wise, the map features a lot of winding, overlapping paths using natural and man-made bridges that keeps the gameplay dynamic and interesting. There are very few areas that don't have multiple ways around them, which keeps right on their toes and the gameplay moving, while still maintaining defined front lines of combat and good places to hold with a solid defense. The map also doesn't shy away from a bit of shenanigans with this fan near last, which launches players into the air. Outflow. This map is a 3CP seaside steel style 3C. Whoa, that's a tongue twister. This map is a 3CP This map is a 3CP seaside steel style map. That's really hard to say. This map is a 3CP seaside steel styled map that I really enjoyed playing on. It has a pretty simple layout for a mode that tends to overwhelm players at first glance. The reduction of capture points was a great compromise to accomplish this. Every area has unique and interesting gameplay elements to it with a lot of height variation, which in case you haven't gathered by now is really important to any good map. The always unlocked last point features a very separated lower and upper gameplay space that seems to lead to a lot of fun fights. Gameplay-wise, the map feels very old school and familiar, but still interesting in a modern way. This also applies to the map visually with that traditional old school, almost minimalist detailing that works very well to sell the theme without anything unnecessary. My FPS always felt very solid on this map. I think this map is a great example of a lean, beautiful, well-playing map without any extra fat around the edges. Not quite sure how comfortable I am with this hero prop on last just yet, though. Next, I'd like to touch on some honorary mentions. There's no way I'm going to be able to do detailed analysis of all these maps, but I have played all of them and I think they're fun. Logwash is a King of the Hill map set in a logging camp with an interesting watery side area that I've tested a fair amount and I've always had a lot of fun fights on. Nixie is a multi-stage attack-defend control point map with a lot of old-school TF2 charm and great visuals. Phoenix is a long-form payload map with beautiful visuals and some interesting gameplay spaces, and check out this extremely interesting last. Sputnik is a fun, beautiful 2CP map using the Mercenary Park theme. Gamma is a King of the Hill map with a heavy spy tech theme, which I always love seeing featured more, and some really interesting gameplay elements. Canaveral is a 5CP map that I wish I would have gotten a little bit more time playing, but it seems to have a solid theme, and I had a lot of fun the limited time that I did play on it. Dry Rock is a single-stage payload map with a very traditional TF2 feel both gameplay-wise and visually. Hardwood is a 3CP attack-defend map set in a beautiful lush sequoia forest that has seen a ton of testing to polish up the gameplay. Brew is a 2CP gorge-style attack-defend map set in two visually distinct areas, the outdoor being a fall industrial landscape on the edge of a city, and the interior being a dramatic brewery. Street is a player destruction map set in a UK city that has fun gameplay spaces and keeps the deathmatch style of the game mode interesting and dynamic. Camp Saxton is a non-event reskin of the map Slasher that could bring this beautiful and fun map to the year-round playlist. I'd also like to last give a quick mention to all the Verse Saxton Hail maps that have been getting cranked out recently. I've not yet had a chance to play the recent iteration of it, but they're incredible achievement using the new VScript capabilities of the game, allowing the entire mode to be crammed into the map itself and not rely on any external server plugins. From everything I've seen, it seems to be an extremely polished experience bringing the game mode into modern TF2. But that about covers it to the best of my abilities. I know I missed a ton of great maps, so if there's one you feel deserves a spotlight, pitch it in the comments below. As a side note, I'm running into some major PC issues right now with my current setup, and I'm working on piecing together a new one to be able to continue making maps and videos. So shout out to these following Patreon supporters that are helping me accomplish that, and if you enjoy these videos and would like to help me fund that build, I'd greatly appreciate your support either there or as a one-time thing via my Ko-fi. Both are linked below. Thank you for watching.